Major disruptions in the supply chain, problems and solutions. That's my discussion today with Amy Thorn. She is the CEO of Distribution Business Management Association. Hi, Amy.
Hey,
Good
it's
to
good
see
to be
you
here.
again. Been a
It's
while,
great
hasn't
to
it?
see you. It has. The last time we were together, it was right before the pandemic broke out.
That's right. I guess we thought the world was normal back then. Maybe it was, but it certainly isn't now.
It's new normal.
Yeah, so what is this new normal? What's going on? What are the big major disruptions you're seeing out there in the supply chain today?
I would say what is not disrupted in the supply chain today. You know, I think one of the things that has happened because of all the disruption that I think is actually really good for the supply chain industry is that everybody knows who we are now. Everybody knows what supply chain is for the first time. And I think that knowledge and awareness of just how important every link is in the supply chain has lifted those that are in the senior VP roles, heading up these global supply chains, right into the C-suite. So, you know, they're in those very, very strategic conversations now because the board members, Wall Street, and CEOs have realized that without our supply chains, there's no business. Nothing flows. How very important it is.
Wall Street is important because it means the investors are willing to give some running room to the executives to make the investments necessary to create these efficient supply chains, correct?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's where we're going to see big transformations. You know, I remember years ago, I was one of the very first people that talked about automation and robotics and everything. But, you know, going back, we had the supply chain of the future at one time. And
That's
so
right.
I think that what this disruption has also done, it's like the tide went out and it just revealed all of the problems that were really there all along.
Yeah.
But they realize that they have to be solved. And what are the solutions? Labor is absolutely huge. Our bottlenecks coming in at our ports, you know, the container shipments, the cost of transportation, the demand spikes. I think the demand spikes have been the hardest thing for them to deal with. Unprecedented demand and not really having the inventory or, you know, the goods moving to where they need to be.
Yeah.
So I think as leaders of supply chain, the top people have to be more strategic than ever and leverage every single tool that they can to make sure that they're getting the job done.
More pressure on supply chain leaders and executives than ever before to kind of save the company, so to speak. I mean, that's really the whole key.
Exactly.
Of course, but who could have predicted? Who could have predicted a global pandemic 1 year later? Who could have predicted a container ship blocking the Suez Canal?
Yep.
I mean, what do we do, Amy? I mean, we need some capability to understand how to guard against or protect against or react to these problems.
Exactly. So risk management is very important.
Yeah.
And I think we realize that we can't rest on our laurels or expect the world to be this organized place. You know, these disruptions are going to continue to happen. And I think it gives us an opportunity to transform. So some of the positive things I think that ultimately will benefit is in the labor market. You know, are we ever going to go back to all working in the office? You know, there'll be this hybrid environment, which I think will give people more freedom and hopefully lend more productivity. But we do need to collaborate. And so that's one thing that I do. I've been very much focused on trying to help the senior leaders in supply chain solve their toughest problems.
Yeah.
And, you know, having those candid conversations, partnering with academia and our researchers, you know, being ready to take bold steps to anchor in what we need to be better in the future.
Let's talk more about your senior leader outreach. You've got the Supply Chain Leaders in Action, the SCLA. What is that and what does it do?
The SCLA is a fabulous group. I really work with the very top senior executives from the world's largest supply chains. So we gather together in a complete environment of trust and a non-competitive environment, and really are able to discuss the real solutions of what's keeping them up at night? How do you solve those problems? So I have a think tank every Thursday, and we get together, and so the hot topics and how you solve them and how we collaborate to work together to solve them is what we discuss. So we bring in, you know, specialists, leading economists, all kinds of things, look at all aspects of business.
Is
and
it
it's very helpful.
Virtual get together?
Virtually once a week, yes. That is one of the silver linings, I guess, is that we discovered that, you know what, the medium has changed, but the message remains the same. And we still have to talk, and you need friends, and you need to have those people where you can collaborate with.
Yeah,
So,
and you can
yeah.
draw in so many more people in these meetings by having the virtual setup. I mean,
Absolutely.
as opposed to it being a conference room somewhere in one place, this gives more opportunity to these global leaders around the world to get together and actually interact.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes, and it's only 30 minutes of time, so it's fine. It's well suited.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so are you feeling good about, we've talked about existing supply chain leaders. What about attracting new blood into this industry? What can be done in order to get the word out, the supply chain, it's an exciting career opportunity, bring young people in? That's important, is it not?
It's very important. And that's why I also work with some of our top universities in academia, because, you know, that they're the training ground, you know, for the future leaders of tomorrow. And I think companies are becoming more and more aware of just how important it is to engage when those supply chain leaders of tomorrow are still in college. You know, and I think venues like we're at and others are a wonderful opportunity to bring them together.
Yeah.
But I think what will ultimately make it sexier and maybe more appealing is what's going to come out of this pandemic. Let's face it, the supply chain were the heroes. They were the first responders. And I think more people are looking at supply chain and saying, you know, that's a career. You always have a job. You always have mobility. And, you know, you save lives. If it hadn't been for our supply chain, we would have been absolutely devastated. So it's kind of nice to be in that heroic space for the first time, and people know, you know, what it is that we do.
Well, a few years ago, it was the supply chain of the future. Looks like the future showed up, didn't it, Amy?
It sure did, yeah.
Thanks so much for talking to me today about your efforts in this area. I really appreciate it.
It's great. We need more supply chain leaders tomorrow, that's for sure.
We sure do.
Thank you.
Thank you. I've been talking to Amy Thorn of the Distribution Business Management Association. Thank you very much for watching.